Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of BRAP Basement Radio Arcade Podcast. It is Wednesday, May the 29th, and wow, do we have a lot to talk about. A lot of gaming-related news. We have a major PlayStation update, major PlayStation business update, I should say. And then we also have some other gaming-related news as relates to Call of Duty coming on Game Pass and the Circana MPD numbers that were just released today by Matt Piscatella. Good friend over there at Circana. But before we get to the news, I want to introduce the panel here. We have a great panel this evening. Joining us again is Detective Seeds. Seeds, how are you this evening, sir?
Good, man. Thanks for having me back. Glad I could make it here on time this week. So appreciate you having me, and look forward to talking about some of these updates, man. They're pretty nice.
Yeah, absolutely. They're great. We're really happy that you could join us this evening. I know your schedule's kind of can be a little tricky on Wednesdays, but certainly appreciate the time. And then we have with us from Down Under, and I believe it is Thursday there, if I'm not mistaken. We have David Faulkner with us, also known as Falky. Falky, how are you this evening? Or not this evening, it's morning over there. But how are you this Thursday?
Yeah, doing well. Thursday, just after 11 a.m. Overcast, cloudy, chance of rain. It's pretty cold outside, actually. We're just coming up to winter at the end of this week, and all the fun stuff happens at the end of May. So plenty of news, plenty of stuff to discuss, and plenty of I Told You So is about to come out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you there, Falky. It's always interesting. It's Southern Hemisphere. I always forget that when we are entering summer months, you guys are entering winter months there in the Southern Hemisphere. So, no, Falky, this is a great episode to have you on because there are some Told You So moments, as you mentioned. And speaking of I Told You So, and I just actually got a call from Nike. Believe it or not, Nike actually listens to the BRAP show. They want to give this gentleman a line of running shoes. And what I gather is they want to call it the Air Hamps. But with us, we have Game Logic. Logic, your feet must be tired today.
I think my new intro should sound something like the man with the tiredest feet in gaming, the narrative obliterator, the destroyer, first of his name, Game Logic. I think it'll go something like that. Yeah, man. I've been wearing holes in this carpet. I just had to down an ice cream sandwich, cool off. I'm fresh from running laps around the circumference of the earth, doing victory laps.
By the way, yeah, Kevin George, Lap Chess, is the eater of hot dogs.
Yeah, he would be correct.
Yes, that's funny. But no, I mean, look, Logic. I have to give you your flowers. I mean, all jokes aside, but again, I've said this to you a million times. I've always said that it's important. I always felt like it's important for you to share your perspective on things related to the gaming industry because you provide a level of detail and nuance that is grossly lacking in the conversation around video games. And not just conversation on Twitter, but the conversation that we see or that we hear from YouTube pundits, influencers that tend to be more platform specific, that tend to a lot of times just be on the wrong side of a history and just get things wrong because they're not being as detailed as they probably should and not doing the research and looking at the data per se. So again, have to give you your flowers here. Yeah.
So I appreciate the DAP. Let me just a minute to get on a soapbox here at the outset of the podcast before I get all riled up, right, and do it later. And I appreciate that. I guess the thing, and I'm going to write this up tonight. The thing I don't understand, particularly about the first 5 months of this year, and I think about all of these narratives, right? That I mean, I say it kind of tongue in cheek and jokingly say that I've dismantled these narratives. They weren't very particularly well constructed in the first place. What I don't understand is tons of energy, tons of effort have gone into this. You know, and I mean, it's not work. I mean, people aren't going off and doing research and putting together like well-formulated takes. Like, they're just coming up with things that people will gobble up and easily believe. I mean, I spent the night before the podcast, before a lot of this stuff kind of went down, reading The Video Game Industry, Formation, Present State, and Future, a book by Peter Zachariason and Timothy L. Wilson, written in 2012, which is from a set of research papers written about the gaming industry. Read a little bit about Two Treatises of Government by John Locke. And the reason those things were pertinent was because the sections that I read in there, one was about something we had talked about during the mobile discussion a couple of days ago, where I talked about where I talked about casual, core, and hardcore. And there was something in the research paper that I wanted to write up concerning that. And then there was this thing that was in John Locke's Two Treatises on Government that I wanted to ask in interest of consolidation, in market consolidation, where, you know, this segment that he had written was about how value is accrued to things that are owned, such as land, depending on their use. And so one of the things I wanted to ask about consolidation was that if a large corporation buys a studio and then dismantles that studio and gets rid of it, have they really done anything additive to the value that gets to consumers, or have they actually taken away from the total value that the whole industry as an aggregate provides? But that's not for me to toot my own horn about reading books, right? My point is that a lot of these narratives that have run around have not even had that much of an input of a level of work, and none of the things that have been touted have anything whatsoever to do about increasing people's enjoyment that they get from gaming. Like, we don't spend time conveying our experiences that we had growing up as kids playing games. We don't spend time conveying why games are important to us. We don't spend time conveying the titles that we've experienced in our lives that have been formative, right? That impacted us, that got us to where we are, that something we experienced in a game, like we integrated like deep within our psyche and formulate part of like our philosophy on life. I asked some questions to the DPS guys like last week about gaming and philosophy, and like none of those things have anything to do with that. They're all about brand defense and like superficialities and social clickisms and popularity contests, and like I just don't get it. Like, it doesn't have anything to do with an actual love of video games. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Logic. I mean, it's a point that we've talked about. We've had this conversation before on this show, that it's never about the love of video games. It seems that it's about proving one platform superior over the other. You know, I often will see commentary here after the show in the comments section when people are like, "Oh, you guys just hate Xbox." No, we don't hate Xbox. If you play on Xbox, that's awesome. And actually, one of the things that I've talked about, we talk about our history in gaming, and one of the things that, and I just kind of tie this into Xbox, one of the reasons why I was so enamored with Xbox 20-something years ago was because Sega had exited stage left. Microsoft comes in to fill this void, and I still think to this day, despite some of their challenges, I think did a pretty good job at filling that void, mostly with Sega leaving, and creating the digital storefront and pushing Xbox Live, which had obviously an obvious and positive impact to the gaming industry. So and then you all heard me. I've talked about the games that I enjoyed, or that not enjoyed growing up playing, but the games. Well, I've talked about that too, but the games that I enjoyed playing on Xbox in the OG Xbox days, and the fact that I was an Xbox Live beta tester and all those things. So I think it's a great point, Logic, that there isn't enough of that conversation happening around the love over video games. And but I do want to, before we get to the topics here, I do want to give a big shout out to the live chat. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Please do me a favor, hit the like button, and if you're new, consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. I do want to get the super chat real quick. We have a $2 super chat from Twisted Sin. Says certain people getting egg on their face today. Thank you for that super chat, Twisted Sin. All right, so I want to go to this this business update with PlayStation, and there are some slides here that PlayStation, or I say Sony, did share, and looks like, let's see here, I'm missing some of the slides here. There was one in particular that jumped out to me, that the PlayStation 5 was Sony's most profitable PlayStation, or it's been its most profitable PlayStation generation. And I was surprised by that. I would have thought maybe PS4, but that's not the case. And Falky, you've kind of been out there talking about this a bit. What are your takeaways from that particular slide that Sony shared about the PlayStation 5 profitability exceeding, or did it exceed or tie PlayStation 4 years in the generation? I don't recall, and I apologize.
No, that's all right. So the slide that we're referring to is the slide number 4 in that pack, most profitable generation to date, which has got the PS1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 graphs and charts, their sales and their operating income. Now, and it's cumulative across those generations, and distinct is no crossovers. It's just distinct year to year. From when the next one comes out, that's when the generation starts in that year. So, the PS4 generated $107 billion worth of sales over a 7-year period. And generated, of that $107 billion, they generated $9 billion in operating income over the same 7-year period, with the 6th year being their peak year, 2018. And it's understandable. Look at 2018 for a year in terms of games that came out. Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, and it was something else at the start of the year. I can't remember what it was now. And they were really hitting their strides, and we knew that the PS5 was coming soon, and things were starting to get going. In the PS5 generation, for the 4 years, 2020 to 2023 inclusive, they've generated $106 billion in revenue. So they've effectively matched, more or less, in 4 years what the PS4 did in 7. And like, it's daylight, more daylight, dusk time, night time, and then more daylight before you get back to what the PS3 did. But in terms of operating income, they've ticked over $10 billion in 4 years, which is $1 billion more than what the PS4 did. So the starting point, they've achieved what the minimum KPI of the next generation is: do better than previous generation. Tick. And they've sold 60 million consoles to 120 million consoles from PS4, and they've sold effectively half as many consoles, and they've matched the sales revenue, and they've matched the operating income. And so anything from here on out is on top as it accumulates and grows up. So to say it's most profitable generation to date, the generation hasn't ended yet. So if you get another, if it mimics what they've already done, by the end of the 7 years, we could be 140 billion in sales revenue and 15 billion in operating income. That's just if it stays at what it currently is based off the 2023 financial year. But you look at the forecast for the 24 financial year, and you look at a lot of the other stuff that they're talking about doing going forward around sustainability and profitability growth. It's very possible that by the end of this generation, they could be somewhere around 17 to $20 billion in cumulative operating income, and somewhere up around the 145, 150 billion in sales. That's massive. But the bottom line is they already ticked the big box halfway through the generation, which is be better than the previous one on the numbers that matter. The only one they haven't done yet is surpassed the they haven't got the PS5 up to being the number one console sold. So at this point, that's kind of an irrelevant metric to worry about. Yes, they'd like to get more of them out there, but you look at some of the other numbers that they've got in this presentation in terms of year to date. Dollars per user is up to $731 from the same time in the PS4 generation. It was $580 per person or per user. In terms of life to date spend, they've got increases in recurring revenue. They've managed to successfully shift a portion of their player base off from from game to game purchases to the live service segment. They're getting their live service revenue run coming in a lot stronger than what they were expecting at this point in time. So I think the plan going forward out of this update, and it'll be interesting to see how that turns into their 5-year mid-range plan next week, or when they deliver that next. It's gonna be interesting because they're still going to go hard at cost saving, and how that flows through. But it's not looking like they're sacrificing anything to do with their revenue base. So yeah, that's quite an achievement. And people say, oh yeah, but the pandemic did this and pandemic did that, and benefits did this and benefit from that, and supply constraints and all this other stuff. Look, it's in the books. It's a fact. You can't argue this. You can put all the caveats you like on it, but the fact is, it's surpassed the last generation. Come hell or high water, it doesn't matter what drove it. The fact is that it happened. So, yeah. Just take the luck and run with it, because everybody else had the same conditions to work with, and they're not reporting best evers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point, Falky. One of my other takeaways too, and I'm just catching up on what's been trickling out from this particular event. Sony obviously viewing the console's initial step in the PlayStation experience. There was a graph that showed that. There's still, and that kind of ties to. I know there was some debate about. Was it what Hiroki Totoki said about being more aggressive in the PC space? Everyone's saying, "Oh, well, that means they're going to go day and date on PC." And then you hear the CEO of Sony saying, "No, like the PlayStation console is still going to be at the core of the experience." I mean, they've doubled down on that again. As again, Sony viewing the console as the initial stepping stone or step in the PlayStation experience.
It's nonsense. We were talking about it last week. We talked about it from when Totoki made his comments and the translation of that. For the last 4 years, 5 years, we've had the same commentary coming. If we do live service and it makes sense to go day and date, we will. There's a slide in the pack here today that lays it out quite unequivocally. And then Herman's comments is the same thing. Live service, it makes sense to do day and date, PS5, PC. Helldivers 2 is a great example of why that would make sense. Same with Bungie and all the other ones. But where it's a tentpole and where it's a single player, narrative driven, console. That's where it's going, console. And then we will think about whether it makes sense to take it to the PC later or not. So, and they've been saying that for the last 4 or 5 years, that the strategy is we will expand, but we will not do it at the cost of our revenue stream. And you consider how much IP they've got sitting in the backlog that they can quite quickly turn into something to go to PC. It's great. That might be the strategy they're talking about, bringing more of those, Gravity Rush 2, Ratchet and Clank, older titles, some of the old PS4 ones, pulling them out and getting them over to PC quicker. But at no stage do they ever say, we are now going to even consider taking our single-player, narrative-focused games from the console and put them on PC day and date. And most of their big exclusive games and agreements that they've got with their partnerships, and that's another thing to discuss at a later point, but they're not even considering those as a staple to do as well. Rise of the Ronin, Stellar Blade, and those ones. Those other partnership games that are coming down the pipeline, Final Fantasy VII, whatever the third part of Remake is, and 16 and a few others, other agreements that they've got with other publishers. But there's no guarantee that they're going to change that strategy either, especially if PlayStation's operating as the publisher. So, for all of those that sat back and said, "Oh yeah, no, they're definitely going day and date. They're going to have to do it," and all the arguments that all the times I've pointed out to other people the numbers don't support that. There's no reason they would do that. They have no desire to do that and sacrifice their revenue. I told you it wasn't going to happen in this update, and it wasn't going to be a change of strategy. But, don't listen to those of us who read this stuff day in, day out and understand what it's telling us. By all means, just go and listen to the other influencers that have podcasts that have no clue what they're talking about.
Well,
I want to piggyback on
go ahead,
real quick, Brap, if I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing that I thought about this update, and if you see me get kicked off Discord is being stupid, so typical Discord. One thing I thought that was so much different than when we see Xbox updates, and I know people are going to be like, "I just hating on Xbox." I just want to show the comparison. Herman Hulse, when he was giving his presentation, it was clear and concise on what their plans were for going forward. And I think that it instills that continued customer support, if you will, to where they have a trust in your brand of where you're going, what your plans are, and kind of what the future holds. That was probably, you take out all the numbers, and strip that away, which the numbers were mind blowing. Like I don't call anyone out by name, but there's some dudes that talk on Twitter that should probably stop commenting on this stuff, like Valky said, because they just have no clue, and the numbers reflect that. But the one thing that I took away was just how clear and concise of their plans going forward when it comes to content going to PC, their continued flow of investment into hardware, that consoles are not going anywhere, and it continues to be their investment in their future and what they believe in when it comes to hardware. And it was so different in comparison to when we saw Phil and Sarah and Matt Booty do that interview, where there was a lot of confusion. I did not leave watching this today with confusion about what PlayStation's goals were and what their roadmap in terms of hardware and vision and where I'll be able to play my games and so on and so forth. Now, we obviously are going to get into some other stuff with the State of Play. There'll be another event later this year as well, sometime in the fall. So we'll get to see some other stuff that they have coming in terms of games. But it was nice and honestly refreshing that when they do talk to us, it is substance. And I thought that there was a lot of substance in what they presented today. And Herman Hulse, man, that dude, he's a gangster, man. When it comes to it, and he knows what developers want, what they need. He goes and talks to them. He gets down kind of on the front lines, and that's why they have been so successful in building those relationships. And I just thought that the one key takeaway I had today was the vision and how concise and clear their messaging was. And I think as a consumer, for me, now, I have a PC and I have a PS5 and I have a Switch, and it showed me that's all I need, to play these games. And so that as a consumer of PlayStation, those guys stepping in as CEOs was a very good step forward in kind of their first appearance, if you will, talking to the consumer fan base of PlayStation and where they're going.
So I want to interject.
Yeah, go ahead. I was going to chime in, but go ahead.
So I think it's something I want to interject because I see it in the chat and it's not. I don't think you guys are like off base. I think it's a thing that's gone around because I actually saw it and heard it on another prominent influencer podcast, and I didn't agree with it. Somewhere in this conversation about cannibalization, the bits got flipped, and I don't know how, and I don't know where, and I don't know why, but there's this prodigious conversation going on about there's not a lot of threat of a console player moving upstream to PC because in the event that PlayStation put their games there day and date. I don't think that's I mean at least for us, at least for me, that's never been the argument. The argument and the warning signal is that there are people today that have PCs that also buy PlayStations across the last couple of generations.
I'm one of them.
So they were PC gamers. They still bought a PlayStation 4. They were hell, I was a PC gamer and still, it goes back to PlayStation 3, 2, I guess for me, right? So you have PC gamers who have bought PlayStations over multiple generations, and they do it to gain access to the exclusives that are there. Yes, they're being published to PC now, so you've probably already eaten into that wedge in terms of cannibalization of sales. But there's still a group that buys them in order to gain access to those exclusives when they show up initially. So the point of the conversation of cannibalization is really that, and I walk through this math in a very detailed model. It's in one of our episodes, and you should be able to go back and find it, where I talked about that estimated number, right, based on numbers that we'd seen from NPD that talked about the cross-pollination between PC and PlayStation. And I said, look, if you go day and date, let's just assume that you're going to lose some X percentage of these hardware sales. And let's keep in mind that those hardware sales come with additional revenue attached to them. You have the attach rate of titles that goes along with it. You have consumption of services. You have impulse buys that happen just because somebody sees a big PlayStation sale going on and on and on and on and on. And so that's a revenue that you're going to lose. And so then I talked about the maximum potential number of sales that you would sell on Steam, and that has a limited constrained envelope, right? And that it doesn't make up for it. It doesn't replace the console revenue. And people who listen to that episode, if you remember, I was once again, as I frequently do, was admonished by Falky for being too deferential to the other side of the argument.
Too
right?
Kind.
Right. So yeah, Falky feels that it would be even worse, right? So that's really the argument. The argument is not that next generation, if you go day and date, there are people who would normally buy a PlayStation 6 who are going to jump and leap and spend $2,000 on a PC, right? The conversation is that there's people who buy PlayStations now that have PCs now that are already PC gamers who would say, why do I need to buy a PlayStation 5 if the game's going to show up on PC, which I'm already invested in?
That's a great point, Logic. I'm one of those individuals, by the way, who has a PC, buys a PlayStation because I don't want to wait to play a PlayStation exclusive when it releases. I don't want to wait the 6 months or a year, whatever it is, for Sony to release a game on PC. And I would be one of those individuals if Sony chose to go down the route of releasing games day on PC. I wouldn't buy the console anymore. And Sony is losing the money that I generate through buying. It's funny you mentioned those impulse buys, Logic. That's a real thing, by the way, and that's a real thing for me. I'm only speaking to myself, but that's a real thing for me when I see those summer sales or whatever they have like throughout the year, those seasonal sales, and they throw those things right in front of your face when you're on PlayStation summer sale, and I'm like, ooh, so and so's $5. I'm gonna grab that. So again, that is additional money. That's money that they would cannibalize, or that would be cannibalized. And I'm gonna go back to what Detective C said about their messaging and how concise it was. I agree with you here, Seeds. Herman Hulse was pretty specific about how they look at day one releases on PC. And he says, like, live service games are going to come day and date on PS5 and PC. And we've talked about that on this show, why that makes sense. Sean Layden's talked about that, former head. I forget what his title was. I don't think it was CEO. I think it was it VP of SIE or something? I forget what his title was. But he's talked about that. But Herman Hulse, very specific. Single narrative games on PC are designed to then entice, are really designed to entice PC owners to play sequels on the PlayStation console. Now, I know some people have given pushback on that. Like, does someone really want to buy a PlayStation 5 if they have a capable PC. Maybe not, but maybe. There might be some people out there that may want to not wait to play the sequel to a game that they really enjoyed. They may, you know what, I'm going to spend the $500. I want to wait for the sequel. I enjoyed The Last of Us Part 1 so much that maybe I got to go out and buy a PlayStation 5 to get, The Last of Us 2 sequel, or the sequel to The Last of Us 1, which is The Last of Us Part 2. But
let's also consider that spoilers are a real thing, and spoilers have value, or they have a negative value.
Yes.
Right? One of the key reasons why I want to play those games. First of all, I want to play those games because I want. This is a key thing. At least it motivates me.
I don't mean to interrupt. I want to just say one point, because I know people are going to assume that I'm applying this across the board. I'm not saying everyone's like this, or that everyone who's on a PC is going to suddenly want to buy a PlayStation 5. What I'm saying is that there is and we don't know the exact number, but there is a chunk of the consumer base there that may play a PlayStation exclusive on their PC and say, you know what, I want to play the sequel now. I don't want to wait. I'm sorry, but go ahead, Logic. I just wanted to clarify that one point.
No, and I just wanted to add that, and that's one reason why people will play those sequels on PlayStation, or will double dip. I mean, one of the things is, and again, I think it bears mentioning, right, to kind of take the type of consumers PC gamers are, and why they're on PC, and how that may feed their other purchases, right? One of the reasons that people are on PC is, I mentioned this before, because there was a thing going around that like PC gamers are on PC solely for like performance, and I'm like, no. PC gamers are primarily on PC because of choice, because they want to dictate what their gaming experience is, and they don't want to have it dictated to them. Now, part of that will cut in a grain that will say that, those types of consumers don't want to be on console. But if they don't feel that way, then that's going to feed a dynamic where those people might buy consoles because they don't want it dictated to them when they get to participate in the story. All of us on this panel, I think, definitely me, we all have multiple devices and multiple places to game. And one of the key reasons we do that is because we want that choice. I don't want a vendor or a competitor to dictate to me when I can play something somewhere. I don't want somebody to tell me that I can't play a thing because it's a timed exclusive. I don't want somebody to tell me that it's a thing that I can't play because it is an exclusive, right? I mean, I've worked hard, right? I've done the things that I've done so that I could get to a point in life where I could make the choice to buy those things so that I have control and so that I have choice. So I agree. I think there's probably not as much of a momentum around, like, somebody somehow plays TLU 1 on PC and then they decide they want to play TLU 2 on like PS5. But where there is ilk in that is, that people want to have that option. They don't want it dictated to them.
That's a great point, Logic.
Agreed.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Falky.
No, you're right. I was just saying, I agree. There's
Mm-hmm.
there's an awful lot of personalization involved in anyone's hobby, and catering to those personalizations across multiple platforms is a great for the consumer. And it's also a sound option when you've got an industry or a market within an industry that has stagnant growth. It's not declining, it's just not getting bigger. You want to maximize all you can out of those options. And I'll just divert here for a slight second back to some mathematics. I was talking about PC items. Ghost of Tsushima is considered, on the PC release, it's just occurred, it's got the best for the narrative-driven single-player game that PlayStation has put out there. Surpassed God of War God of War for the most concurrent players at 77,000. Not even close to what Arrowhead and Sony PlayStation got with Helldivers, but different horses for different races. But the estimate sales so far for Ghost of Tsushima, which was, the success of concurrent players, was one of the big war cries of, they should do day and date, they should do day and date. The estimate sales so far is somewhere between 400 and 750,000 units sold on PC for that game, right? This isn't even thinking about those that have been pirated and all the other stuff that comes along with that issue of PC gaming. And when you take a 30% storefront cut out of that, PlayStation has made off that release of Ghost of Tsushima somewhere between $16.8 and $31.5 million. Go back to what we said at the start. Last financial year, they did $30 billion in sales revenue. At best, at the moment, they've done 31 million with Ghost of Tsushima going to PC. Now, this is just sales. This is net sales after you take out the Steam storefront at 30%, which is what they would be paying. Steam wouldn't be cutting a deal because the units just aren't there. They're not selling over 1 million units yet. The difference for that, and you talk about they put the same game out on PlayStation through their storefront, no 30%. At 500,000 units, they would have eclipsed what they did for 750,000 units sold on PC, and eclipsed it by a lot. It's about 35 million per 500,000 units sold at $70, right? So when we talk about PC day and date, and as Game Logic just did an explanation on and touched on some of the other stuff he's done, you got to take into consideration all these personalization factors, all that. But as you said, BRAP, a lot of people will go back and get it on PC for the relived experience, for a different experience of something that's familiar. And you've got to factor in this double dip concept. Why would PlayStation get rid of that and lose that revenue stream, and then surrender the revenue stream for what they get on their own storefront by 30+%, and then potentially lose sales because of pirating activity on PC? And then once you've taken all of that stuff into consideration, and you come back to this notion of, well, let's give gamers choice. Other companies have tried that and failed miserably. Why would they change a business model that works well for them for the sake of giving the gamer more choice when they already are spoilt for choice? I can't, like, the numbers just don't stack up. They don't have an issue that they need to fix. And, looking at the information that they put out today, I don't see any reason why they would be worried about that approach. Yes, they're going to bring more stuff to PC, but again, as Logic just said, there's an inherent personalized, and forgive me if I'm paraphrasing this wrong, but there's a personalized element within PC gaming that you can either be like my son, who's got a laptop with a 1080 in it that just plays Teardown and Minecraft and Fortnite and couldn't give a rat's ass about the graphics. He just wants to play fun stuff with his friends, versus others who get the top end 4090 and triple fan liquid cooled massive $10,000 gaming rigs and these screens and stuff that just, the bleeding edge of technology as it is, and they enjoy that, and the customization and all the changing components and always fiddling and tinkering and all the rest of it. That's fine. People used to do that with cars 50 years ago. And that was what they enjoyed doing before we had computers. So you can't expect a company to cater for everyone across the whole broad spectrum. Otherwise, they will go broke trying to do that. You can't please everybody. You'll end up pleasing nobody. So if their strategy is working and making money and they stay sustainable, well, your options are get it on the console first so you don't get spoiled, so you get the best option of it when it first comes out, or just bide your time and wait. I don't buy games brand new because I refuse to pay full price for something that's not finished. But by the time they go on sale, and there's a sale on every bloody week, by the time they go on sale down to a level where I'm comfortable to pay for them, they've had all the upgrades, updates done, they've had all the hot fixes done, and they've probably got a PC release coming around the corner, and they get the bumps with that. So
yeah, and I think that
they're not going to change this strategy. Sorry, mate.
No, I agree 100%. They're not going to change the strategy because it's working. But I think that the numbers that we see right now, you're going to see what called a bloodbath, if you will. It's going to get even worse next year when Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out, because that game is going to, Grand Theft Auto 5 is a powerhouse of a game, and lots of people buy it, and lots of people are going to want to get their hands on that game. And we know that there are a lot, I don't remember the exact number, I don't want to throw out the wrong one, but there are a shit ton of people still on the PS4 that haven't upgraded yet. I definitely think
Where is
Wait,
it?
was it
The
80
number here is
million or something
90.
like that?
Monthly active consoles as of the end of April 2024 in this slide says there's 97 million active consoles, 49 million apiece between PS4 and PS5.
Okay, so
That was at the end
49
of April.
million. So
Yep.
I, if you want a reason to upgrade, now not everyone, but I think you're going to see a huge chunk go and do that upgrade when Grand Theft Auto 6 comes, because that game, if there is a game that's a console mover or just a platform mover in general, it's Grand Theft Auto. We have seen what they have done with all the other Grand Theft Autos, especially Grand Theft Auto 5, the numbers that came out on that game alone. It's not going to hit PC for at least, what they say, a year, maybe 2 years, whatever the case might be. I don't remember what the flow was for Grand Theft Auto 5. There's going to be a lot of people go and purchase a PS5. And that disparity of numbers is just going to increase even more to where we're going to see that difference of what they did the last 3 console cycles with the PS2, 3, and 4. When Grand Theft Auto 6 comes, that is going to be a monumental title, and I just think that we're going to see that disparity get even larger to where it's just going to blow numbers off the charts, because Grand Theft Auto 5 released, I don't have the date in front of me, what, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it was.
Yeah, just after Noah sailed past.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, this is a console mover, and PlayStation 5 is in a perfect position to just absolutely annihilate when that game releases, because people are going to buy it. And so I think that bloodbath is going to get even worse, man. For
Well,
the other side.
there's commentary in this business segment update, and I would encourage. This is a segment update that is aimed at investors and aimed at financially minded and business minded people to do this piece, right? But I would encourage anyone who is interested or curious, when it comes available for the live stream segment to watch, just go and watch it. And the Q&A especially, you'll get some really good insights out of the Q&A. The Q&A is more valuable in terms of understanding what's going on than the presentation, because they just get straight to the points. But there's some stuff in here that the slides say one thing, but the additional content provided by Herman Hulse was really important, particularly around that. But there's a slide in here that specifically talks about, in touching on what you're just saying, strong new release slate and ongoing execution of the live service roadmap. GTA 6 is going to be a live service game, and it's going to factor very heavily because it's a key partner for PlayStation, and they talk about key partners and the engagement that they have in another part of this slide, and it's part of their cost shifting or cost reduction program is to work more with second and third parties to find more cost-effective ways for PlayStation themselves to either offload costs or share costs to a neutral point, so they can get this stuff out and fix their profitability issue. But there's a couple of other interesting comments that are in the in these things as well. So there's a big focus on that engagement with partners, and they talk about publishing a lot more than they have in the past, which is a bit of an insight. But yeah, there's some GTA 6 is not expressly listed in anywhere, but they keep referencing these major partner engagements, and GTA 6, when it does come out, is going to do some serious work. Now, PlayStation is definitely going to be able to hang in the fight, so to speak, in the economic conditions to get to the GTA 6 launch.
Yeah.
I don't know if PC is going to take it up as hard as what the consoles will, but I'd be very shocked if the sales numbers aren't heavily skewed. There's no way Microsoft can afford to put that game in Game Pass.
No way.
If the Take-Two would be like the amount of money that Take-Two would have to accept for that to happen, it would break Xbox.
I don't think they
It would be
would.
unrecoverable. It would be fiduciarily irresponsible.
Yeah. I don't even know that Rockstar would even want to do that or even entertain it. If I remember correctly, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that PlayStation had some type of marketing deal with Rockstar for Grand Theft Auto 5. Again, it's been a long time, but I do
Yeah, they did.
remember, they had like some bundling and things like that. I can definitely see PlayStation throwing some money around to do that, but I also kind of revert back to thinking, do they even need to throw money around to do extra marketing? Because right now they have so much to offer when it comes to their platform, and like I said, their messaging was very clear, very concise. They're selling consoles, just like crazy. And so it'll be interesting to see how that process goes. I do think that they'll probably try to get in on that, but then I also, like I said, I wonder, do they even need to spend the money when they consumers are just buying PS5s, you know, at a, what was it, 5-1 in terms of against, getting the series consoles. So I'll be interested to see how that game moves and see the numbers that it moves for, especially guys that have PS4s that upgrade to be able to play that game. I'll be interested to see what that number and how that needle moves, and kind of talking about that when that happens.
Yeah, so 49 million currently active, but they're not being used as much because there's a breakdown of time. Again, this thing's full of interesting tidbits. There's a breakdown of time. Where's the slide? Yeah, so the total gameplay hours split between the PS4 and the PS5 as at April 30th, 2024, cumulative is 3.8 billion gameplay hours. 2.4 of that 3.8 is spent on the PS5. So there's over 1 billion hours more spent gaming on the PS5 as there is on the PS4. And that's cumulative sell-throughs and all the rest of it. So yes, there's PS4s in existence, but they're not being used anywhere near as much as the PS5. So yeah, when they finally get changed over, and again, the things are hardly ever going on sale, which is helping keep the revenue numbers up and the other bits and pieces as well. But if you put a $200 price drop on a PS5 to kick them out the door, if the economic conditions satisfy that, well, you get an uptick in sales again. But the forecast for next year, 18 million units. They did 20.8 this year, and they did, what they do last year, 16 something, 15, 16, I can't remember now. So yeah, they've got a forecast down next year of number of units sold, but it's still going to be second or third best year in history for console sales for PlayStation. So don't don't discredit this thing from having legs still. It might be on the downhill run, but it's still going to run pretty hard, especially when you look at how they're getting. There's effectively no competition at the moment in parts of Europe, Asia, and most of the other continents, AMEAs. The only place where the Xbox is putting up any kind of resistance is in the US, and that's failing horribly.
Interesting you mentioned the
So I
Xbox
think-
to the US Falky. We now have, per Matt Piscatella, that the series consoles are now have fallen behind the Xbox 360 at this point in the generation.
I don't know what more information, what more data, what more analysis, what more of everything that relates to Business 101 that department in Microsoft needs to see to pull their finger out and actually have a crack at doing something sensible. Because they're getting stomped. And I know people don't like PlayStation and gaming podcasts talking negatively about Xbox, but we've been at it for years asking them to do better. And this is a result. So if Microsoft leadership's had to step in and take over, again, go and look at what the outlook is for PlayStation. They're talking it up big time in a positive manner, knowing they've got a cost problem that they can fix. They're sorting it out. You go and look at Xbox, and they're scratching around in the dark, playing with themselves, trying to figure out whether we should or shouldn't go publish a third party. They take one step forwards and 3 steps backwards. And when the big bosses step in and say, no, we're taking over to do this, their only response was, let's put Call of Duty in Game Pass. Like, what the hell is wrong with them? Anyway. They couldn't even dream up a strategy as solid and as sensible as what PlayStation and Sony's now two CEOs just delivered an hour ago, 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
If Xbox came out with something like this, they would show that they're up for the fight. But they can't even come out with the first slide of what Sony's capable of producing and then bitch and piss and moan about, oh, it's not fair, we need to do this, we've got to do that. Like, they boxed themselves into a corner and they can't get out of it. So,
well, Falky, the one thing I wanted to bring up here, and I know we gave Logic his flowers earlier in the conversation, but you know, a lot of one of my takeaways too, and I think I said this earlier in the show, was that a lot of the content creators, particularly on the Xbox side, as Detective Seeds, I won't name names, but a lot of them have really they missed the mark here with their analysis of where PlayStation, with the state of the PlayStation business. Logic and I did a rant yesterday on the ESA survey of where Gen Z and Gen Alpha are currently playing, what platforms are currently engaged on in terms of playing video games. We found out that they actually are utilizing game consoles to play video games more so than our generation, Gen X, which was a surprise to me. And so, you know, as I look at these numbers and I look at as you're talking, I was reading some of the highlights of this business briefing for the PlayStation business. Again, I just go back to how, and I said this on Twitter earlier today, like just this major disconnect between what's actually happening, the realities of what's actually really happening in the market, in the health of the PlayStation business, versus what some of the pundits and content creators were saying was happening, and it's the complete opposite. And it's like, it's mind-boggling to me because I don't think it's hard to disseminate some of the information that we get periodically here. I think a reasonable person would have probably come to the conclusions we all have here as it relates to just the health of the console, the health of the console business for PlayStation, and the fact that, look, like they are in a vastly different position than their competitors right now. And yes, are they having challenges? Absolutely. Like you talked about some of the impact to their profit margins. That's a real thing. Those are things that we know that they've discussed, they're working on. I think one of the things that came out of the conversation today was that they're looking at partnering with developers or finding other parts of the other countries where maybe the town is not as expensive to make video games. That's something they're looking at. So, I mean, like, I'm just kind of shaking my head. Like, a lot of these guys just got it so wrong.
Oh, I swear to God, they didn't even look. They don't pay any attention. They just make it up as they go, and they do zero research. A 5-minute Google search gives you so much information these days, and they just don't. They don't look at it. They don't even consider it. You know, if there's an issue in the console space, the first person who's going to know about it, or the first organization going to know about it, is going to be PlayStation. When you're that much of the industry and that much of a market, the smallest change has the biggest impact. And they'll know about it well before we look at it. Like, we look at their performance reports and all that sort of stuff 2 months after the fact of when the final quarter reports come out, and I look at it and I go, yeah, I can see what's happened here, and I can then see what they've factored into their forecast. But by the time we're reading that, we're halfway through the next quarter. It's happening. They know what's going on. They have their finger on the pulse better than anyone else because they've got teams, and I say teams, they've got thousands of people that are looking at this stuff and reporting it every second of every day around the world. It doesn't turn off. And a lot of content creators they forget that. This isn't a 9 to 5 business. This thing runs
Mhm.
24/7, 365.
That's a great
And
point.
requires huge amounts of resources to do it. They have got their finger on the pulse more than you would ever realize. And I can say that with authority because I've worked for global companies that do not sleep. I've been on meetings at 2 a.m. in the morning because the phone rang and they said, get your ass on here now. We've got a
Mhm.
problem in the US or we've got a problem in Europe. I've been and involved in those things. These things don't stop and they can take off in a big hurry. Just as much as you can have an overnight failure, because it's the middle of the day somewhere else and someone made a stupid decision that has an immediate impact to the organization, that happens all the time. The downturn can happen just as fast as the upturn. So when a market has a reaction, these guys know about it. And at no stage have they ever said in their forecast or any of the information they've been giving for the last few years that consoles were going to go away, that consoles were in trouble, that consoles were under stress and duress. And then lo and behold, we get that information out of the US alone that says, hey, consoles are fine. Gen Z and alphas love consoles. So what? We always knew mobiles were in front of consoles because of the access and ease of, the Subway Run or Candy Crush or whatever the fucking hell it is, wordplay, whatever it is for the day, to spend 10 or 15 minutes on it. That's great. You look at the monetization of that thing, dollars per user is no even close to what you can get out of a console. So if your console dollars per users is going up and you're making record profits and you can see a sustainable platform going forward where you don't have to sell 120 million units, you can get the same thing out of, or you can get better in half the amount of time out of half as many units. Why the fuck wouldn't you stay doing it? It's nonsensical.
Yeah.
A 5-minute Google search tells you that. And that's for somebody who has no idea what they're looking at. For someone like myself and others that are on this panel who know what we're looking at, people just ignore us and go, oh, you're wrong. And we say, okay, what have you seen that we haven't? And they go, oh, you're just wrong. I know you're wrong. Fuck off.
Trust me, bro.
Yeah, and I think that, like, look, I think that it is okay to again, I don't drop names, but I think that it is okay to call some people to the carpet and at least the narratives that have been going around. You want to talk about missing the X? I mean, these motherfuckers jumped out of an airplane and missed the LZ by miles. Like if we were landing on operation, we would have to send vehicles to come pick them up because they were so
Don't play
far
Warzone
off.
with these guys. That's what you're saying, Seeds.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's. I think that it's. Look, everyone has their opinions, right? Opinions are like assholes; they all stink. But whenever you look at data and you see, what is happening within the market, I think some people just willingly do not want to talk about the facts because it makes whatever they're beholden to look bad. I take no qualms, and I do not shy away from the fact that I prefer PlayStation. I do. I prefer PlayStation. I don't shy away from it. I don't care. But I also, if PlayStation does something, like if these numbers would have came out and showed that the consoles were in trouble, I would have said, yeah, there's a problem here. But we kind of knew based off the data leading up to this information coming out that was not the case. That the PS5s were outselling series consoles. In some cases, it was like 5-1. And so it does not take. I understand that some people don't understand some of the numbers. I'm not an expert in everything. I'll be the first to say that. But it is one thing to just put out false information of PlayStation is dying. They have to follow Xbox and go to PC day and date. That's just not accurate. We know that's not accurate, and we've been able to see that that's not accurate for months and months and months because the numbers and the data was there. You just have to look at it.
Yeah, it's been staring a lot of these guys in the face, and they've just refused
Been there.
to. Yeah, they refuse to take into account. Yeah, go ahead, Falky.
Sorry, I've got a couple other points I want to make before I have to head off, and I apologise for taking up others' time.
No, Falky, it's okay. I know you have limited time with us.
Rip through these couple of items. First of all, again, we're not big on calling out specific individuals, and I certainly don't profess to get into it in that manner. But I always have a giggle at a comment that I saw made on a podcast, an Xbox podcast, where said individual host leans into the mic and goes, I've heard a rumor that Xbox is in front globally, and I'll just leave it at that. And that's all he said. Absolute blatant lie, because there was nothing that suggested they were in front on any metric anywhere. And that was 12, 18 months ago. And any time you raise that point with this individual, they just flatly deny having said it. Flatly deny having said it. There's no, didn't say that, didn't say that. But they never correct themselves, because all they want to do is rile up the fan base, because that's what Microsoft was paying them to do. Rile up the fan base, have a great groundswell community of dedicated fans. So we'll always have a core unit to be there. PlayStation doesn't engage in that tactic, which I think is a failing on their part, because if they ran a strong ground game, then they'd have a much stronger supporter base to a degree. But they don't need to, because of what they're doing here. You know, they're producing quality. When you're producing quality and you're in front, that far in front, the risk is not that you're going to get overtaken. The risk is taking your foot off the gas and just getting complacent. That's why, change of management every couple of years in PlayStation gets that new energy coming in. They treat this business like a business of selling stuff to people, and that's what they're doing well. It's a great mentality to have, because they've constantly re-engaged in this energy. Do they get it right all the time? No. Do they have some missteps? Yeah, they've had some pretty big ones. But they've managed to figure it out and find a way of minimizing the damage to continue delivering what their core units are. Having said that, I will point this out, because same said individual, which I just mentioned, has gone on record several times in saying that PlayStation's cancelled all their live service they're getting out of it, they can't handle it. Direct quote from their Gaming and Network Service segment update, slide number 32. Studio Business Group financial year 24 to 26 focus. Drive sustainable and profitable growth and invest thoughtfully in the future of play. Strong new release slate and ongoing execution of live service roadmap. Ongoing execution of live service roadmap. For everybody who said they were bailing out and getting rid of it and they weren't going to do it, and it was a big U-turn and Jim Ryan got sacked for it, go fuck yourselves. Learn how to read. The expansion of franchise reach, which is going out to PC and going out to other places of engagement, so movies, film, music, TV, all the rest of it. Continued financial discipline. They've got another slide in here which suggests how they're going to do this. This is part of that partnership stuff that I've been hammering on about for the last 6 to 12 months. They're not going to buy more studios in. There's no threat from other organizations in buying up studios and IP. That threat's gone. The money's not there anymore. Poof, it's gone. It's disappeared. It's a fugazi. It's done. Consolidation war, finished. Xbox killed it with the Activision deal. It's done. No one's going to touch that. Look at what the regulators did to Microsoft. No one's going to touch that. No one wants to piss off PlayStation either, because of how Jim handled that. No one's got the money to do that. So the consolidation piece is gone. The partnership arrangement, which they did in the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 era, worked great for them then, dug them out of the hole with the PS4 launch. They're going back to that. Rise of the Ronin, Stellar Blade, they're great examples of what they're doing. And when you factor in what they're going to do, as you said before, with the engagement with developing countries, let's put it that way. I mean no disrespect for that, but that's what it is. It's a developing market in those countries. China is still a tough one nut to crack, but it's still untapped to a degree. But they're getting involved in Malaysia. They're getting involved in Brazil. They've started up India Hero Project. They've started up Spain Hero Project. They've got 3 other of these country hero projects yet to be announced that we know are going on. They're looking at a presence in Africa. They're looking at a bigger presence in the Middle East. They're developing parts of the Eastern European bloc. These are all places where there is a developing industry where it's not stupidly expensive to create games, that the technology exists and the barrier of entry is lower than in America or in the UK or in Japan and other places. And they can get quality games out of these things at a low cost. Now, whether PlayStation funds them directly or indirectly, or whether they get funding through another one, it doesn't matter to Sony, because as long as they can sell it on their storefront, they'll get a chunk of the money. And they will invest in games and promote games and offer all that ex-dev involvement and all the rest of it where they can. If we got 2 or 3 tentpole titles a year and we had every other month filled with something that was as good as Stellar Blade or Helldivers 2 or something like that, we would sit here be complaining about having no time to play all these awesome games. Yet the narrative from others is PlayStation's got no games because their first party output doesn't cut it. Who gives a crap? Look at all the other deals that they're doing to get us something to play. And it's not just one particular type. It's across the board. Everything you could imagine. Look at what Shuhei does as part of his job. He's got an open checkbook to go everywhere with his team and just find games that we want to play. Sean Benson's got the same deal, third party. All she does and her team is, all her and her team does is find games to play. That's what they do. And they've got a storefront that delivers it to us. And if all they're going to do is focus on our internal development and our external development engagements are going to keep bringing us quality at the level that we're getting it at or better, then the financial performance will follow, which strengthens them. How are they falling over here? Like, put 2 and 2 together and get to 4, ladies and gentlemen. Any content creator out there who is got the stones to listen to what we're saying, just pull your heads in for a minute and consider actually understanding what these businesses do. And that will give you an opportunity to understand why you're wrong. And a lot of you are wrong. And you hate to be told that you're wrong, but you never shut your mouth. Do yourselves a favor and read this thing. It's actually got a lot of really interesting information in it. And I am and just final remark on it, I am so thankful I didn't have to listen to Jim Ryan deliver it. Because I hate listening to him deliver this stuff. Jim Ryan's an absolute shark. I hope his retirement's going well. He certainly deserved it, and all the best to him. But anytime he stepped in front of a camera to talk about something that wasn't a business, like investors or business thing, oh my God. Herman is just brilliant for this.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to my TED rant.
No, Falky, no, thank you. And I know you have to get going, but no, that I certainly appreciate your perspective on things and breaking down some of the slides and numbers that Sony shared with us. Before you go, Falky, one thing that really stood out to me or stands out to me as I'm reading through some of these slide decks, PS5 users are spending per console more on add-on content, and this is in compared to PS4. Okay, so more on add-on content. That's up 100. That's plus 176%. There's PS5 users spending more per console on services. That's plus 57%. PS5 users spending more on peripherals. That's plus 34%. And that's on that's in comparison to the PS4. Now I do want to note, well, there's one negative here, but 12% less on full games according to Sony. But again, I mean, they've seen increases in some aspects, significant increases the big one that I see is more add-on content and services here.
That's the change in how the games are sold to us as well. Because the comparative year there is 2016. The PS4 comparative year is 2016. So in the 7 years between this same point in lifetime to date of 2016 to the 2024 numbers, how we buy our games obviously is going to be down in terms of spend because we don't have complete games coming at us as much as we did back then, and we don't have those high dollar titles. We've got a lot more medium dollar titles now that people buy than high dollar titles. I mean, think about how many indie games in the $30 to $40 mark there were that actually got bought back in 2016 versus what we've got now. And the 2016 was very high physical. Now it's more digital. And not to try and discredit what they're saying here, but again, these are the sort of things we've got to consider. We buy games with knowing that we're going to be buying a battle pass, or we're going to be buying a season pass, or we're going to be buying something out of it to increase the value on the game. So just while you're running through those, I will also point out one other. If you can read slide 20, that one's really interesting. That is a glimpse into the future. Slide 20. Evolve and lead through innovation, where they talk about hybrid cloud and artificial intelligence involvement. in platform and game development. I can't wait to see that one get fleshed out. And the other thing was slide 23, where they talk about what studios are doing what. Interestingly, they've got their single-player narrative focus, and they've got their partner studios. Bluepoint, Nixes, and Valkyrie Entertainment partner studios are the ones that'll be driving either the remakes, the remasters, or the PC expansions. They've then got the Evolve multi-genre, so Guerrilla, Polyphony, Media Molecule, and Bend. Live service focus is got San Diego, Bungie, Firewalk, Haven, and Neon Koi. Fire Sprite and Housemarque. They're listed under single-player narrative focus, but they're also considered shaded in for the partner studio segment and live focus segment. So we know Fire Sprite's got a few different teams doing their thing, but Housemarque's an interesting one. I'd be very curious to know what their next game is and what it's going to do. Because if it's anything like Returnal, but it's a live service or a multiplayer, multi-genre one, that could be quite an interesting outcome too.
So Falky, I'm just I'm not necessarily saying that we're. So I think that shading indicates the acquisitions.
Ah, yes, it does too. That's interesting. Huh.
Not saying that there's not necessarily cross-poll amongst the studios, but
I would have thought that they would have not bothered with shading in the acquisitions by now.
Yeah, it makes it interesting, and I wonder. I mean,
it's more the alignment I'm looking at rather. So, yeah, just the way they've got them stacked. But yeah, there's some interesting stuff on there. I'm surprised that they've got Fire Sprite as single player narrative focused as well, given the other stuff that they're doing. But yeah, no, good point out, good shout out. Yeah. Anyway, there's some other slides in there that are just fascinating, for me at least.
Yeah, I'll need to do a deep dive into the slide decks here.
Yep. So the last one I was promised, I swear this is the last one. The slide 26, robust development framework planning, portfolio planning and prioritization, market risk assessments and studio capability alignments, and the execution, milestone-based title reviews, scope management, shared tools, technology and services, and outsourcing and co-development. We may find some first-party title IP getting done by second parties. Until Dawn pops up in here a lot. So maybe that one's going to be outsourced. Who knows? Anyway, yeah, thank you for the freedom to carry on like a pork chop, and I'll relent whatever time I have left back to the broader panel. Thank you for putting up with me.
Yeah, no, Falky, always a pleasure having you on. I appreciate the time. I know you're a limited time here, so thank you again for joining us.
That was the best pork chop breakdown of numbers, bro. You did excellent.
Want to grab some?
I'll probably hang around for another 10 minutes, but I'll just jump in and add commentary. But yeah, I got to go in about 10 minutes.
All right. I want to grab some super chats here from Bulbur Constry. $2 super chat. Sony made more money on PlayStation Helldiver sales. Thank you for that super chat, Bulbur. Anonymous Boss with the $20 super chat says, salute to you guys in chat. You're speaking facts. I would wonder what if Sony is right now thinking of buying Ubisoft. If so, it would have to be a huge amount of money, correct? Is GTA 6 going to be a PS5 time exclusive? I don't think it's going to be time exclusive, but
Ubisoft.
And I don't think they're going to buy Ubisoft either.
Oh, man, if they bought Ubisoft, the first thing they'd have to do would be sack about 4,000 people, and that is just a nightmare. You wouldn't even bother. Let BlackRock or someone else that's a bloody hedge fund buy them and do that first, and then partner up with them. There's no point spending that amount of money.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with you. Real quick, Logic. I want to go to you. Who any additional thoughts here, and then go to you after Logic. Detective C's. I thought I heard you chime in earlier, Logic. And by the way, I do need to step away for just a second as well.
Yeah, I mean, nothing super major. I think the remaining stuff that I would pick out, I think the panel hit most of the stuff that I was going to talk about. If you go down to slide 31, one of the things that popped out at me was I projected last week, and I'm trying to pull it up now. Sorry, that if you go back, one of the things we talked about is that we were going to link this back to the PlayStation strategy meeting last week. So today was the business segment meeting, which was a more granular, detailed decomposition of the larger strategy to 2024 meeting that they presented last week. And that was going on while we were live last week, so not everyone was able to, pay attention to it. We didn't really get a chance to talk about it on air. But one of the things that popped out at me, if you look down on slide 31, is that they talk about engine development. And if you go back to their strategy meeting last week, they talked a lot about game engines, mostly leveraging Unreal for use in their movie production studios. But then they did a step aside and started talking about their own gaming IP. And one of the things that I think that we're going to see, because there's a lot in here about leaning on technical innovation and emphasizing use of their own technologies. What I came away with from the discussion of the strategy meeting last week, that strategy meeting was about the entire Sony corporation, and then going into the segment meeting today is, I think we're hearing a lot of things that, again, I constantly reference how much Sony is kind of Apple-esque in some of their ventures, but then with like slightly different vectors. And I think one of the things that resonated with me and that I was hearing last week is this effort to kind of control what I talk about as the creative stack. So if you talk about Apple and how they try and control the hardware stack, right? And now they've gotten down to the point of where they are, building their own processor instead of relying on Intel for it or relying on IBM for it as they did in the past. It sounds like there's this effort to own this thing that is the creative stack, and that includes the engine, which a lot of that they do already. I mean, they do that already for the PlayStation 5. But then when you talk about some of these other endeavors, what I can see them taking, what co-host Slow-Mo has christened the pisser, which is their own frame rate generation and AI generation technology for use in game engines. What I'm hearing is as they try and control this creative stack and try and shorten the workflow and implement AI in everything, taking as for an example, somebody takes a picture on a camera and immediately getting that into a creative workflow with their own stack of tools and not having to, take it on the camera, then get it off the camera and get it onto a PC. And then once it's on PC, get it over into Adobe and do things with it. I see them making a bigger push to make a larger game engine that they will market and sell for use by others. And so taking it beyond the PlayStation SDK, but then pushing it out to the gaming industry so that other people can leverage it and use it to deploy games on PC and use it to deploy it in places in the same manner in which you might use Unreal or Unity. So I think that is one thing that kind of leapt out at me from the business segment update today. And then I think the last thing I want to mention, kind of Falke already talked about it, but, indications in here that they are not backing off of their live service game strategy at all, that it's just a matter of managing it and sequencing it and figuring out how it fits in their portfolio. When you kind of look at the representation of their overall effort that's going into games, at least as far as what they're willing to talk about today, I think that this slide is a little tailored in terms of things that they don't want to reveal. But the largest segment of their strategy is the live service gaming segment, as they represented on this slide. Now, they include in there things that we don't maybe traditionally think of as live service games, like MLB The Show. But it's clear that that's where they're kind of seeding it in their portfolio now. And then, on slide 23, where Falke talked about, those studios in here, and going back to the super chat we got, I don't think PlayStation is going to purchase a wholesale publisher outside of something like a Bungie, which is a publisher in as much as they publish kind of their own games. But that's a significant cultural integration problem that Sony has shown an unwillingness to really invest the level of effort in and invest the money in. I think what you'll continue to see is potentially studio acquisitions. And I think those studio acquisitions and the reason why they're color-coded on this chart, I think they're indicative of potential future acquisitions that they might make, right? Studios that could help them in furthering out the diversification of their current strategy. So, not going after something. I don't believe, and I'm just guessing again, that you're going to see them going after another like Insomniac, right, or a studio like that. But I think you may see them going after studios that can help them in their diversification of their strategy and fit within this partner studio framework, or maybe even this live service framework. I don't know, Seeds, did you have anything else you wanted to toss in?
No, I think we've pretty much hit this area all that we can cover.
Yeah.
I don't really have anything else to add in this segment now.
Yeah. The only thing I would add is I do agree with Falky. Everyone should take a look at some of these slide decks. A lot of insightful information.
The long and the short to take away from it, and I'm going to have to jump off in a sec. The long and the short to take away from this entire thing is PlayStation has not yet indicated that they've broken away from the mold of things have to go well with this title, with this IP, with this strategy, because if it doesn't, we're proper done. They've still got that pressure of we have to perform or die. But their performance levels are ridiculously good. And they've got a lot of runs on the board. They're not doing anything. There's nothing in this document. I've read it 4 times now. There's nothing in this strategy that they've put forth which indicates they're going to take a big swing for the fences on some risk. Everything is sensible, stable, mundane, boring, if you want to call it that. But it's what's worked well, and it's what we know we can do. And it's like Logic just said, they're not going to buy another publisher. They had the amount of trouble they went through just with Bungie and the miss that they had there and the impact that had. They're not going to suffer that again. And smart enough to not do that. Iron Galaxies might be another one they look at picking up. If they're interested in being acquired, they'll get them cheap. They do good PC port work. It helps bolster their strategy. Are they going to go out and buy another major studio? Probably not. It's just smarter to do partnerships with them. But everything will be for a purpose of either strengthening an IP, bringing an IP on, or whatever. Now, Sony's purchase of Paramount, that's got nothing to do with PlayStation initially, but it will have something to do with PlayStation if they do close Paramount, because all of a sudden they get all the Nickelodeon IP. Well, you think about all the Nickelodeon IP that exists there. Well, that's great. And if they close out some of these other Sony Music closes out some of these other acquisitions that they're doing with IP for anime, well, that'll bolster their anime ability to produce anime content if in terms of gaming if they want to, but they still need a studio to do this. And it's cheaper for PlayStation to now get a third party to do the work than it is to do it internally because of this crushing overhead that they have to deal with. Global companies have an overhead cost like you would not believe. If they can minimize that overhead, it makes them more flexible and nimble as they've spoken in here, then they get better operating income performance and they get better bottom line earnings per share. But they're not going to do anything crazy. It's steady as she goes. Change of leadership at the top might be slight different approach. Herman's not going to be as much of a shark as what Jim was, but hopefully, Herman's able to do his job and focus on the games and getting the quality of the games up and leaving the platform business to be decided out by Hideaki Nishino. And he's no mug. He's been around for a long time as well. Yeah, it's not doom and gloom. They're going to be fine. They're going to be around for a while.
And I think that goes along with the big overall assessment, right? I posted today that a lot of this dialogue that went around that Nintendo buying Shiver Entertainment was indicative of a pivot. It is not. It is indicative of them furthering the strategy that they're already on. Everything that we heard today is not indicative of a pivot, as people claimed when they kind of cherry-picked the sound bites from Totoki, which were misinterpretations. It is all a matter of furthering. Granted, with some modulation, some refining, but they're on, as Falky said, the strategy that they've been on. They're just adjusting it for the times. What is going on at Xbox is a full-on, blown-out pivot.
Yeah.
So amongst the platform owners, there's one that's doing a huge pivot, one that's doing a big bow swing change. The other two are not.
And the one that's doing the big pivot is about to find out just how smart they really are, or they think they are. Yeah, I won't get into that because I'll miss my next meeting. But that's certainly a topic. That's a topic that's probably best spoken about once they've had the showcase.
Yeah.
And once Xbox has had that all come out through the embargoes lifted and all the rest, so we know exactly what their plan is. It's easy enough for me to sit here and for us, all of us, to sit here and cast an assessment over what we think the outcomes are going to be, which would be a repetition of what we said 18 months ago when they first mentioned it. But yeah, their future's good in a tough economic environment, which it is in a lot of places, and it's the future's looking pretty good. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for putting up with me. Thanks for chatting again. Great to talk to you all. I got to run off and sort some other problems out.
All right, Falky. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate the time, as always.
Have a good one, Matt.
Yeah. No, great to chat to you all again. Keep safe, enjoy, and yeah, catch up with you soon.
All right, sounds good. That is David Faulkner. Thank you so much again. And I do want to move on to, unless anyone else wants to add to the conversation or the PlayStation business update, which I think Logic. I don't know if you want to add anything else. C's, I think you've tapped out.
The only thing I want to add is let's not call it the business. Let's not call it the business update, just because that's what Xbox called their thing in February. I get wrapped around the axle about labels. So the thing that happened today was the Sony business segment meeting, of which the game and network segment was a portion of it. Okay,
all right. The business segment meeting.
Sorry,
we'll refer to. That's fine. Speaking of PlayStation, we have a state of play tomorrow, and you know I did see a lot of people doing a prediction show. I really don't have any predictions. I mean, for me, I'm assuming we'll probably see Silent Hill. My only prediction, the obvious one, is that we'll see games, but I don't really have anything else to add to tomorrow's state of play. I am looking forward to it just to see what we might see. Maybe we see a little more Concord, but again, I'm just interested to see what they show. I don't have any other real predictions or thoughts on that, but I'll throw it to you, Seeds and Game Logic, if you guys have any thoughts on tomorrow's state of play.
I've said it the last a couple times. I tell everyone to temper their expectations for some of these things when it comes to Sony. Just in general, they're going to show you 12 to 15 months. I would keep in mind there's going to be another show later this year, sometime in the fall. I do hope. I think we're going to see the Astrobot. Going to see Concord. May or may not see something from Sucker Punch. I don't know if they're going to hold it or if they're going to let it rip. I don't know. I think that you will probably see a one or two third party exclusives that they're going to have. And then I don't know if they're going to do a piece of hardware tomorrow or if they're going to hold that as well. I know one that I can comment on for sure. The other one I can't even talk about. There is one piece of hardware that is for sure going to be announced at some point. I don't know if they're going to do it tomorrow or if they're going to do it later this year. I hope they do it tomorrow because I do think that it would be a nice hardware piece to add in, being the controller. But I don't know what they're going to do on in that segment. Silent Hill for sure. I also don't know if they're going to show Spider-Man 2 DLC yet or not. Might watch for that tomorrow. I haven't heard for sure yet. I do think they will give Jeff Keighley God of War Ragnarok going to PC. I could see because they are going to be at the Summer Game Fest. I know some people knew I was going to be there. I'm not going to be there. Just change of event, something I'm dealing with health-wise, so I'm not going to be able to make the trip. But I would look for that, to be at Summer Game Fest. If not, they could do that. But I definitely would go into tomorrow with some tempered expectations of, it's a state of play, and so, I would look for. I think they said 14 total titles, so I would look for maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 VR. I'm not a VR guy, so I don't even know what they would show when it comes to VR, but I could see 3 or 4 VR games, and then the other, being a mix of 1 or 2 first party games, and then some other stuff that they have going. But I do think my one hope is that tomorrow they say at the end of the show, hey, we will see you guys at our next show or at our showcase in blank, whether that be September, end of August, or mid-September. I do not know the date yet. And if I do hear the date, I'd probably, I might put it out there once I know. But that's what I'm looking for, honestly, tomorrow is maybe Spider-Man 2 DLC, Concord, Silent Hill. I think the last thing that they will probably show is Silent Hill, and then go into the Silent Hill, what is it, after stream, whatever it is, developer deep dive. So those are some things I would look for. And then, hopefully they give a, hey, we'll see you guys at our next show in, whenever they decide that's going to be.
How about you, Logic? Any thoughts on tomorrow's state of play?
I think we're going to see, pretty much exactly what's on the slide in their business update. I think that's the telegraph. I don't know how extensive
Did you
that
say
will be.
Business update?
You got me. In the business segment meeting.
Damn it, we don't say business update.
Yeah, come on.
So what's on that slide is
what a Fight Club, Logic.
What's on that slide is, and I don't think they would show anything about Ghost of Tsushima, but what's on the slide is Wolverine, Death Stranding 2, Ghost of Tsushima, The Final Shape, Destiny 2, Concord, MLB The Show, Fair Games, and Marathon. So I don't necessarily think that they'll hit the games that are already out unless they're going to do some type of DLC thing associated with those. I do think for the stuff that's not out yet, it'll be, a thing to show something, an additional gameplay trailer, additional cinematic trailer, story update, or something of that nature. I think one of these things will be the preliminary padding for whatever they're going to do at Keighley's show, just like they did last year. They gave us a good chunk of Spider-Man 2, but then they held, a couple small things back, but then including the release date. So I expect a similar pattern here. And then I suspect that something is not on this slide that they'll talk about, that maybe, one of their major releases for this year that is not a tentpole IP, that is new IP, that they didn't want the word to get out, and so they didn't have on this slide deliberately.
I will say this. I know I saw the slide, and I know of 2 studios that have things ready to go that are not on there. And so I don't know in terms of, if they're saving stuff up for that later showcase later this year. I don't know.
These are third party developers, you said?
These are first party.
I know. First party. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
I think Tom hit on it a little bit. I know of 2 other studios outside of what's on there that have games that are ready to go. And so
interesting.
I don't know. Like I said, I think that they're going to save some stuff for in the fall. I really hope that they say, hey, we'll see you guys at this date. We know there's going to be an event in the fall. I'm gonna guess it's probably gonna be in that September timeframe, but I haven't been told specifically. But when it comes to this state of play in particular, from my understanding, the state of play was supposed to be last week in place of the business meeting. It was supposed to be on the 22nd. That's why I was pretty confident in the 22nd having a showcase. But I was told it was going to be a showcase, and that was from and it's one of those, hey, trust me, bro. But I do have a good relationship with 3 of the first party studios specifically. So, and that came from guys from each of those studios. And so, I'll be interested to see if one of them pops up and says anything tomorrow. But if not, the 100% would have to be in September, because I know they have stuff ready to go. I'm pretty sure Tom Henderson and maybe even Jeff Grubb, I don't want to speak for him specifically, but I'm pretty sure some of those guys have already been hands-on with at least one of them. And so I would expect to see that, this year, because they're ready to go.
Yeah.
And that's in addition to that list.
So are we all in agreement that they're not going to show anything like they're not going to reveal something a huge IP per se at the showcase? Maybe smaller titles is what you're hinting at here, Steve. But definitely not a huge IP though.
If I was going to say if there's going to be anything that I would consider a big drop, it would be Ghost of Tsushima 2. If they do it, they may hold it until
like a teaser trailer
showcase. But yeah, I could see them. I mean, given something. But I truly don't know, because from my understanding, they changed some things up with how this was going last week and this week, and so I don't want to say they'll drop something big, because I don't know, but I do. If I had to bet on one making an appearance over anything else, it would be Ghost 2. But they may hold it for later. But it's obviously a thing. So yeah.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. Like I said earlier, I don't have really an opinion or predictions other than we'll see games. I always like to temper expectations going on to this, because for a long time
for sure.
I always thought, we're going to see Bloodborne, the remake, or no, that's never. So
I mean, last year guys were like, oh God, we might see Grand Theft Auto. We might see all this stuff. Like it's going to be a state of play. I would go into it, with tempered expectations. But if I were to say, hey, look, maybe one, good sized title, that would be the one that I think, they could bring out. But I don't think aside from that, I would go in with tempered expectations of probably Concord, Astro. If they are going to drop a bigger one, it would be Ghost 2. I think maybe a good possibility of Spider-Man 2 DLC. But they do have several things ready to go.
Yeah, the Astro one wouldn't surprise me if that was revealed tomorrow.
Yeah,
that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I definitely think that'll be there. I don't see a reason why that wouldn't. I mean, they even had as the guy for the days of play. So I definitely see that game being there. I do think Concord, they'll do something with Final Shape. Because that comes out on the 4th or the 6th, whatever.
Yeah.
And so that'll definitely be there with Bungie. So, but I think tempered expectations, and then see if they exceed your expectations. And then I just, my one wish, and then I'll wrap this up so I'm done talking. My one wish is that they say, hey, we look forward to seeing you guys later this year at our showcase, and leave it at that, and say that. I do hope they do that.
Yeah. No, that's I think if they don't, I think people are going to. I think fans, more diehard fans, might be upset by that.
I agree.
We might start seeing the conversation. Oh, we don't have a roadmap that tends to come up when discussing PlayStation.
Yeah,
and you certainly understand people wanting a more defined roadmap and wanting to see some of those tentpole franchises revealed. I get that.
And it doesn't break from the norm. Like, I know that Sony doesn't like to say a lot. They just will put it out there. We've become kind of used to it. But I think it just gives a little. It just says, hey, we're going to see you guys later this year. We look forward to showing you what else we have in store. I just think something subtle like that goes a long way with people. But if they don't, they don't. But yeah, I would definitely look to see another event later this year.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of been their cadence, right? Like it's been like the state of play, and then at the end of like September they have like kind of their big showcase. I think that's been kind of what they've been doing the last couple of years, right?
Well, last year they had the showcase. Last year they had the showcase. Now, because we had it in my opinion was not a beefy showcase whatsoever.
Okay.
So, and then they had, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they had a state of play later in the year. And then this year, it seems like they're going to flip flop it and do a state of play now. They'll have something at Jeff Keighley's event, which I do think, if I had to bet, it'd be God of War Ragnarok going to PC. They've used him for some other things in the past, when it comes to God of War. And then I think in September would be kind of the time frame I would give for them to do a full-blown showcase and pull out some really cool stuff that Sony fans will like. So,
Gotcha,
yeah, State of
okay.
Play was in December. Sorry. So it was in December. And I think that, that's the order that they seem to be doing.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Logic, any other thoughts? And I know we had other topics, but I do have a hard stop here at 11 o'clock, so I won't be able to get to some of the other topics that we had planned this evening. I'm probably going to have to do another BRAP this week to talk about some of those other topics. But any other additional thoughts, Logic, before we wrap up the show?
No, I'm good.
All right. So, well, look, I'm certainly still excited to see what Sony has in store for tomorrow's state of play, and as Falky said earlier, by the way, please look at the Sony business engagement presentation. I'm going to drop a link for that in the live chat. And I was looking at the slide deck here as you were as we were talking about the state of play. There's actually some really great information here. And just like I'll drop here the live chat, the link. But just as we said yesterday on the BRAP rant, Logic, there's just a lot of great information out there. They give you a lot of insight as a consumer of what's going on internally at PlayStation. You talked about the ESA yesterday, some of the with their survey and some of the trends that they've uncovered. There's just a lot of great information out there. Please utilize those resources. I think there's
spend more time going and finding those things.
Yes,
and reading them. And don't read them because you have a narrative and you're looking to have that narrative validated. Find the artifacts. Pay attention when they're pointed out to you, when they're offered to you, because we do a lot of that. Find the artifacts, read them. I almost hate to make this request because I know a lot of people will. Read them with an open mind. Read them, see the data presented, and make an interpretation of the data. Don't contrive the data to fit your narrative like people did with Totoki statements or like they will do with other statements. Read the data and see and see what makes sense to you. See what passes the smell test. Read multiple sources. I mean, I hate to say it because I don't want it to negatively affect your viewership, BRAP. Right? But be cautious about spending your gaming week going from podcast to podcast to podcast to podcast. I struggle to understand when people have time to actually read by doing that.
As long as it's BRAP and Crossfire. Hashtag shameless plug.
Yeah, no, thank you for that plug. No, it's Logic. You bring up a great point because I think unfortunately, we discussed this on yesterday's rant. I think unfortunately, a lot of people get their news or information from podcasters, from jumping from podcast to podcast to podcast, and I don't think Logic's saying you shouldn't listen to podcasts. I'm certainly not saying that, but certainly do your own due diligence, do your research. The ironic thing about the internet is that we literally have an abundance of information at our fingertips. Where when I was growing up, you might have to hopefully you had an Encyclopedia Britannica collection. You had to pull those books down from shelves, or you had to go to your local library. And so what was the cataloging in the library? What was that called again? I forget. Is that the what is that?
Dewey Decimal System?
Was it the Dewey Decimal System? I think it was.
Yeah.
I think you're
I tried to
right.
stay out of the
Yeah.
library when I was in school.
In the card catalog.
The card catalog. You pull the card catalog open. You flip. You'd have to look up the numbers, and then you'd have to go to the other side of the library. I mean, we have so much information. There is no reason why. To me, in my opinion, there's no reason, no excuse as to why we're having the kind of dumbed down conversations that I hear on podcasts and that I see on the internet. Considering the amount of information that's available to us at our fingertips, Google can be your best friend. Use it. Use it wisely. Do your research. Read. Don't, as you said, Logic, go in there with an open mind. Don't go seeking confirmation bias.
If you want to argue and like fine, but please, I'm just asking. Please don't come at us with some esoteric gray market buried in the woods artifact that you're using as your proof point. Please don't present to me some undergrad student research paper. Right? Please don't present some obscure website that has no pedigree behind it, that has bad website design. Go find the official information. Right? Just, it amazes me the things people pull out, right, as their proof paper for, why they're going to refute something that we're, using an official artifact about.
Yeah, and the other thing too, Logic, is please don't use it makes sense economics. What does Eric call it?
While we're saying that,
just because economics.
Yeah. And while we're saying that no, that does not include NeoGAF. It does not include Reset Era. It does not include some dude's Excel spreadsheet, right, that he posted on one of those websites as proof of something. When I'm looking at a corporate earnings statement that has been legally filed with the SEC.
Yes, and if you're going to present information, present it correctly too. I had someone else present to me an article that was really, really bad written by I don't remember the name of the website, where they were talking about accountability margin, and this guy was like, "Oh, this is proof that the Xbox profit margins are higher than PlayStation." And they look 12%, and then you had Phil Spencer under oath testifying that the Xbox business, that the profit margins were in single digits. So again, do your due diligence, do your homework. You'll be better for it. Anyhow, all right, that's our closing rant here, and I want to thank David Faulkner, Falky, for joining us tonight. Also want to give a big shout out to big shout out to everyone in the live chat as well. I believe the live chat was mostly civil, so that's good. I wasn't paying as much attention to it as I usually do, but thank you for the live chat for coming out and hanging out with us this evening. Please hit that like button if you haven't done so already, and also consider subscribing, hitting the bell notification if you like content like this, and also want to give a big thank you to Detective Seeds for joining us. Now, Seeds, if you want to be found, please let everyone know where they can find you. Let everyone know about your YouTube channel and where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, appreciate you having me back on, man. Detective Seeds on X, Detective Seeds on YouTube. I have a Stellar Blade Platinum video that went up yesterday. I upload Platinum videos, Platinum Trophy videos on Tuesdays, and then I have a This Week in PlayStation kind of recap that goes up on Fridays, and then I'm on Crossfire every Thursday at 7 p.m. So we will be watching the State of Play tomorrow, and then straight into Crossfire. And so yeah, I appreciate you having me on, man. It's always fun coming to chat with you guys. You guys are good people. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a pleasure having you all, Detective Seeds. Like I said, anytime you want to hop on the show, open door policy. You're more than welcome to join.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. And then we have our track star here, Game Logic. Logic, I don't know if you. I'll ask you. I ask this question every day, or every time we do a show. If you want to be found, please let everyone know where they can find you.
I just want to say shout out to the mods tonight. Mary Wilcox was in there. I think Mary Wilcox needs to be christened the Amy Hood of the BRAP podcast. so she handled things for about the first hour and a half or so.
Yes, she did.
And then we had the brother Slow Mo Black Backslap come in, and Ryan Landis show up to round things out. So.
Yeah. By the way, Sam Walton's actually a mod now. Sam, I apologize. I didn't ask you if you want to be a mod, but you're here every week, so I signed you a mod to. I signed you mod status. All right. And then Logic, do you want to let everyone know where they can find you on Twitter?
No.
Sam Walton's like, man, I got promoted.
Oh yeah, I might see Until Dawn in their remake or something coming out. Might see that tomorrow.
Yeah, I could see that too. Yeah, there's that remake coming out, which they teased back in December, I think, right? Yeah, I could see that again.
I think so.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I'm going to pencil in Until Dawn remake and Astrobots 2.
Concord. I think Concord will show up.
Yeah. All right. And then you can follow me on Twitter, BRAP_podcast. You can catch me here every Wednesday night with the panel at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And again, sorry we didn't get to all the topics this evening. Definitely going to do another show this week discussing MPD Circana numbers that just came out today, and the official word from Xbox that Call of Duty will in fact be going to Game Pass day and date. So I'll talk about that as well. But thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Until next time, hey, just remember, enjoy playing video games, regardless of whatever platform you choose to play them on. Just have fun, because ultimately that's what it's all about. And on that note, we will catch you next time. Thank you everyone for listening to the show live, and for those who will catch the replay. Again, remember, hit that like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. Thank you again. Till next time.